Let's be honest, wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
Testing. Testing. I can't tell if I'm hearing myself or hold on, let me turn my headphones up. Testing. Okay, there we go. Now I can hear. All right, I think we're good. Thanks, JV. JV is always the first person to tell me if something is not going right with the stream, which I 100% appreciate. Okay, so let's hop back into what I was saying. So basically, thanks, JV. So yeah, basically, I was saying North Texas. How are y'all feeling? There's a lot going on when it comes to North Texas. We've got for the Mavs fans. How do y'all feel about the actual Klay Thompson trade that's apparently is on the table? Not Anthony Davis, but Klay Thompson. Apparently, they are open to discussing it, which I don't really blame them. I know people are saying that like out of Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis, they should try to keep Klay. But here's the thing, and here's where I think Mark Cuban is being reasonable. Klay Thompson literally turned down a deal with the Lakers so that he could play with the Mavericks and play specifically with Luka Doncic, and that whole situation was blown up. And he didn't even have a say in it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't blame him for being upset. I don't blame him for wanting out. And I think it's smart and good of Mark Cuban to be like, all right, we'll give you a way out. That was not fair. So that's pretty much most of the news that's on the table for the Mavs fans. For the Wings fans, how are y'all feeling about not knowing if or when you'll have another season? There's interesting news with some of the stars, like Paige Beckers just put out a new snack with Chris Paul. So that's dope if you're into like trying new snacks or trying the new, I can't even tell if they're chips, crackers. I'm gonna have to get back to y'all on that. But that's pretty much the Wings news. Cowboys though. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about and not a lot to talk about at the same time. Because while there's a lot you could have like feel a way about when it comes to that Lions game, and there's a lot of thoughts that you might have about the upcoming Vikings game. At the end of the day, whether or not it actually means anything and is worth talking about really comes down to how invested you are into seeing the Cowboys make the playoffs at this point. So CG said, to be fair, the whole team and fan base got upset. I'm assuming that's about the Luka Doncic trade. Yeah, 100%. So when it comes to the Cowboys, y'all, I'm going to be honest with you. I forgot to even make the burn book graphic. That's how much of a non-story that loss to the Lions ultimately was. Like, if you were watching the live stream when I was doing the watch-along, you know I had feelings about it as it was happening. But then going back and watching film, there wasn't anything really new. You know, sometimes you watch a game and you feel a certain way about it, or there are things that you're curious about or confused by. Then you go and watch the film and it's like, oh, that's why that happened. Or like, oh, we thought it was this, it was actually that. This wasn't that. What we saw, pretty much what it is what it is. It was what it was. And so I think that's why by the time I got to today, I was just like, oh, snap. I was supposed to do the burn book thing. And if y'all are following me on YouTube, you even saw the post where I was like, well, who do y'all think should be in the burn book? Because I was in a place where I'm like, I could name a number of people. So I wanted to see what y'all thought. And I did eventually come to a conclusion, but I want to talk about the options that y'all chose. So in the YouTube polls, you can only put 4 options. So that's why I listed 4 different options. And then I said y'all could also put in the comments who y'all thought it should be. So it was 33% for 3 different options on the poll. And this wasn't like one person voted for each. This was like several people voted. And the options that were tied were Nate Thomas, the Cowboys O-line, and the Cowboys D-line. George Pickens got no votes, and I'm so proud of y'all for that. And I'm gonna tell y'all why in a minute, but I'm so proud of y'all for nobody picking George Pickens. I love it. In the comments, we have T-Jack, who said Kenneth Lamar Murray. Called this man by his whole name, so you know he meant it. JV said it was Jake Ferguson's fault. JV, drop that take in the chat if you want. I want to hear why you think out of everybody, Jake Ferguson deserved to be in the burn book. And then Chris Johnson said, Cowboys DBs, they ran outside all night and poor tackling after the catch. Oh, special teams was and has been ass. They started from damn near 50-yard line all night. Chris is not wrong about all that in any of that. And starting with the special teams, we'll start there. Yeah, they did. The Lions did start from damn near the 50-yard line all night. Oh, by the way, this is a part that I always forget to do. Hold on. The Cowboys lost with a score of 44-30. When I worked for D210 Sports, they would get on me for that all the time because I would forget to like say the score because like in my mind, I'm so used to my audience, like they already knew they were there. So yeah, for anyone who was not on the same page with me there, the Cowboys played in Detroit on Thursday and they lost with a score of by a score of 44-30. But yes, part of the reason why the Lions were able to score so many points, and we'll talk about what the defense didn't do. We'll talk about what Dak's O-line didn't do. But when you are starting from damn near the 50-yard line, I think their average starting point I read was like the 43-yard line. Yeah, when you're starting that close, yeah, you can score upwards of 40 points. You know, you have great field position. You literally don't have to work as hard to get the ball in the end zone. And it's not like Anger just all of a sudden forgot how to kick. It wasn't anything like that. It was that he kept kicking to the Lions returner. And at some point you're like, maybe try to force a touchback. I don't know what the thought was there, but on one of the kicks, I remember Aubrey actually ended up being the person to tackle the returner that put him in the ground. And I'm like, that should never be the case. I don't know what's been going on with the Cowboys special teams unit. And I remember when Bones left, when it was announced that Bones left, like I was sad about it because I like him as a coach. I think he's a brilliant mind. I think he was an asset to the Dallas Cowboys. And I was sad about it and I knew he would be missed. But I didn't realize this unit was going to look this damn bad this season. But no, it hasn't been talked about as much. I think because the defense has just looked horrendous for most of the season. And then when they didn't look horrendous, the turnaround was so impressive that people have been talking about the defense all season. People have been talking about the defense. They've been talking about the tandem of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Everybody's had a lot to say about all that stuff. And so when it comes to time, when it comes to perceived relevance, the special teams unit has been kind of low on the totem pole. I can't even remember anybody talking about them at all except for me. And the only reason I even talked about them was because there was a press conference where Brian Schottenheimer had mentioned that they really wanted to get Turpin going. They wanted to see him do a kick return and get it all the way into the end zone, and they were trying to figure out how to get him more yardage on those kick returns because they felt like he was capable of it. And I remember discussing that briefly. But outside of that, I don't remember there being any major storylines involving the Cowboys special team unit. But I don't know what the hell is wrong with Kevontae Turpin and this whole signaling a fair catch and then trying to run thing. I don't know where his head is, but he needs to cut that shit out. Like, literally, I'm not even saying this to exaggerate. Literally, nobody else in the league is doing that crazy mess. Nobody else is doing that. This is not like one of those penalties that happen sometimes. Nobody else. I want to say somebody put up a stat that said this hasn't happened. Like that penalty hadn't been called in like it's been called once in the past like 7 or ish years or something like that. Like it's been a long ass time. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. And at this point, I'm just like, hey, try some personnel changes. And Brian Schottenheimer in his most recent press conference, I think it was his most recent. Sometimes they post a press conference like while I'm driving here, so there might be another one. But in the press conference that came out yesterday, on Monday, Brian Schottenheimer did say that they were going to do some different things with the special teams unit as far as personnel goes. So we'll see what that means. We'll have to see what that means. But yeah, I would say with even though Chris Johnson did not mention one person or unit that should be in the burn book, he put up a lot of options, but they're all pretty accurate. And let's see what JV is talking about with Ferguson. JV said, Ferguson used to break tackles, but that was 2 years ago. Ferguson has been leading the team in fumbling for the past 2 years. Oh, damn. Ferguson is 26, 27 and is good to only catch and lay down. Damn. Also says, Ferguson is playing worse than old man Jason Witten after he came back from retirement the first time. Damn, that's so rude, JV. Oh, my God. And concludes with, Spanford should start taking more of Ferguson's snaps. That's one of those changes that I really wouldn't be mad at this point in the season, because the Cowboys' odds of making the playoffs, I got to check and see what they actually are. I know it's in the single digits. Okay. Looks like their current probability of making the playoffs is somewhere between 6 and 9%. If they win out, it goes up to 54%, which is north of 50%, but still is not, enough to really rely on. And so if they wanted to start trying some people out with some new responsibilities, CG says rude but not wrong about JV's comments. Agreed 100%. When I say y'all are being rude, if I think you're wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong. But if I say you're being rude, I'm just pointing out the damn. You really put whoever we were talking about on Front Street. But yeah, if the Cowboys wanted to start playing with personnel and responsibilities, if they wanted to say, look, CD, you have suffered a concussion, even if you are cleared to return. And I'll talk about that in a second regarding both CD and Jake Ferguson. If they want to say, even though you're cleared to return, we don't want to risk it. We don't want to risk it. So, we're going to give Flournoy some more snaps. Hey, if they say, you know what, we just want to see what we have and span forward, why not? Why not? Because right now the odds are you won't make the playoffs. And so right now, one of the best things you can do for your team is figure out what you have to build on for next season and hope to make the run that you thought you would make this season. Hope that you can make it next season. And to prepare yourself to do that, figure out what you have in certain people and what you don't have in others. So I feel like that's totally legit. Before we get to concussion talk, Nate Thomas, I kind of lump him in with Cowboys O-line as a choice, but I don't blame anyone who wants to put a circle around Nate Thomas in terms of what caused that loss and what's a bad look for the Cowboys moving forward. Nate Thomas was out there playing like he was fighting for the Red Dot Award. And what is the Red Dot Award? If you've ever played a team sport or you ever been a coach, you know what the Red Dot Award is. The Red Dot Award is when you go into the meetings and you're either looking at film or you're talking about something that happened during the game, and the coach takes that little laser pointer and they put a red dot right on your ass. That's the Red Dot Award. And he was playing like, oh my God, I want that red dot so fucking bad, because there were times where I literally was like, what is he looking at? Usually when it comes to an O-lineman who's struggling, I can at least tell what they were trying to do. I can look and see like, oh, that's what tripped them up. It was a stunt, it was a twist, or, it looks like they were confused on their assignment, or, okay, it looks like based on their body position, they were trying to get this type of leverage that didn't really work out. Oh, maybe they don't have the mobility in their body to be able to do X, Y, Z. Usually I can kind of tell, but with him, I was literally at times like, why was he looking over there? What is he looking at? What is he doing? Does he know what he's supposed to be doing? Like, it was terrible. And JV, I see you in the comments. I'm not giving Terrence Steele a pass. I'm just saying we're talking about Nate Thomas today. Terrence Steele at least did have a couple of good moments. One of them was even highlighted on Get Up on ESPN. That's how much it stood out. So I'm not going to give him a pass. Like, that's something else that we can talk about in terms of the O-line as a whole. The tackles specifically let Dak Prescott down. I just feel like Nate Thomas was worse than Terrence Steele, in my opinion. And that could be biased. That could just be me, trying to fit as much film watching into the amount of time that I had, which is usually not much. And so maybe I zeroed in on him. It could be that. But yeah, between the people who voted for Nate Thomas and the people who voted for the Cowboys O-line definitely won when it came to who my audience decided to blame. Now, Cowboys D-line, you could say some things about them. They definitely underperformed based on what I think a lot of people expect. I don't know if it was fatigue. I don't know if they just did not expect the speed and ferocity of the Detroit Lions, because it's one thing to talk about a team that is aggressive and fierce and is relentless in the way that they play. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to experience it, especially after playing teams that, while they are good teams, aren't exactly playing like that. I wouldn't say the Eagles or the Chiefs or even the Raiders came with the kind of speed and intensity that the Detroit Lions were bringing to the field on Thursday night. Even what the hell is that man's name? I swear, the thing I hate most about my ADHD is how it makes me forget names. Dan Campbell, yes. Dan Campbell even said that it was the best game the Lions have played all season. So even if you tried to prepare yourself mentally for what you thought the Lions were going to bring to the table based on the film you were watching, you probably still weren't going to be quite prepared for what they actually did. And that is based on the testimony of their own coach. One of their players, I'm trying to remember which one. Hold on, I'm scrolling through my notes here. But I know one of their players basically broke a record. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Al-Qadim Muhammad, that was the one, posted a career high in sacks. 3 sacks on the night for Al-Qadim Muhammad. So the Cowboys are out here helping dudes build their resumes is how badly that game went. So for the people who voted for the D-line, I don't blame you either. But if I had made time to make a burn book graphic, the O-line would have been on it. The O-line would have been on it, especially considering how good the offense normally plays. So it's we're talking about a very, very big drop from what we were used to seeing in the offense compared to what we saw on Thursday. And so that's why I agree with the people who voted for the O-line. So before I speak more on that, I do want to talk about why I'm proud of the people who did not vote for George Pickens. And the reason why is because after that game, it felt like national media members got together and were like, let's talk shit about George Pickens and see what happens. I don't know why. It started with Richard Sherman. And I say it started with him because, one, he did the Amazon postgame show, so he was the first person to really do it. And 2, even on other shows where I saw people bring it up, they didn't seem to bring it up on their own volition. It was brought up hey, Richard Sherman said this. How do other former players? It was Richard Sherman started it, and then other people kept it going, but it might not have ever started had Richard Sherman not gone on a rant what he felt George Pickens should be doing or should be bringing to the table. So I'll speak really quickly on the one play that went viral. In my opinion, it did not look as catchable as people made it seem. And it was one of those situations where George Pickens could have, made a show of making an attempt if he really wanted to, just to appease people. But I think he looked at the situation and saw that wasn't going to turn out well, no matter what he did. And so he decided not to risk another penalty. He decided not to put his body at risk, considering that CD was already injured. And he just let the ball fall. And why do I say that? Because every time I looked at the clip, and I looked at the broadcast view, and then I looked at the All-22 view. As that ball is coming down, you see him and the 2 defenders who were double-teaming him, they all look to the right, which says to me that while everybody keeps saying that ball was catchable, that ball fell somewhere to the right, meaning George Pickens would have had to go through or around that defender that was to his right in order to catch that ball. And just from what I was seeing, it looked like once he realized that ball was not on a path to fall into his hands, once he realized that he would probably have to commit some form of offensive pass interference or something else in order to catch it, he, just like the 2 defenders who also did not make a play on the ball, just looked up, saw it fall to the right, pulled up in his run, and that was that. That's how I saw that play out. And I wonder if so many people made a big deal out of it because Richard Sherman made a big deal out of it, and he's perceived as an expert. He's supposed to be smart. He's a former player. So they're like, well, Richard Sherman wouldn't be going off if there wasn't something to be going off about. No, sometimes former players and perceived experts are also wrong. And so that's my perspective, and I'm sticking to it. And so I really appreciate the fact that nobody who voted on this poll that I put out had anything negative to say in the comments or on the poll about George Pickens. It makes me love you guys as my audience even more. I'm just like, yes, I have viewers who have good sense. Y'all are dope. Dope content. What up, K-Lou? How are you doing? Says, all I know is get Kenneth Murray off the field. The Cowboys are going to have to revamp that linebacker unit in the offseason. They have some work to do there. JV says, I blame scheme and philosophy for the D-line woes. I can see that. It almost looked, and they haven't talked to Coach Eberflus about this yet, but it almost looked like the Cowboys were facing the biggest challenge that they faced since they went on this win streak, and they reverted to some really bad habits. And it was just like the soft coverages, the D-line being moved around, just the lack of blitzing, the lack of creativity, just like all the stuff that people complained about that went away over the past 3 weeks came back against the Detroit Lions. And I would love to hear from anybody why, because Schottenheimer didn't explain why. None of the players really explained why. Looking at the players that they were putting in the interviews, I would say we're back to a point with the Cowboys where dudes aren't really wanting to talk unless they're obligated to. That is one thing that I remember from the partial season where I had locker room access with the Cowboys. It was a really rough season. I say it was a long time ago. It was last season. It was a rough season. They were dealing with losses, injuries, and just a lot of drama in the press. It was really weird vibes. And dudes would just not be in the locker room because our time in there would be scheduled. And I remember that I would have, like, in my notebook, I'd have who I'd want to talk to, and I would go in there, and none of them would be in there. And so I just kind of had to either talk to nobody or just find people to talk to and find a reason to talk to the people who were there. Like, I'm literally in the locker room Googling people, like, while I'm in there being like, what did he do in the game? Oh, okay. Well, I'll ask him about this, or asking about practice and shit. It was wild. JV said he has to become initiated into being a Dallas Cowboys player. Okay, that's real about George Pickens. I would say he kind of got a little bit of training on that, considering the BS he dealt with before he left the Steelers, because they were talking about him like everything that was wrong with the Steelers was his fault. And JV says it's as simple as Eberflus sucks. Well, I wish I could argue with you there, but I can't. Anyway, we have about a minute left in this segment, so I appreciate y'all dropping y'all's takes in the chat. You can continue to do so during the commercial break. After we come back from the break, we might do a little read and react, maybe. But what we're really going to talk about is we're going to talk about the FIFA World Cup that's coming to North America in summer of 2026. So Dallas is one of the host cities, so we have some stuff to talk about regarding that. And I have a little bit of information for y'all. Nothing major, but if you are, well, I know my audience, I know y'all are NFL fans. And so if you're wanting to come on this journey with me and cover the FIFA World Cup and the weeks leading up to it, and you've been looking at things and been like, I need somebody to explain this to me like I'm 5. Well, guess what? I'm your girl. I was a substitute teacher for a little while, so I am prepared to explain it to you like you're all 5. So when we come back from the commercial break, we'll talk about that. JV says to K-Lou, we have the LB whisperer. They've been saying that since his hire. Oh, my God. Yeah, he whispering all right, because whatever he trying to get them to do, they don't seem to be hearing it. But anyway, yeah, when we come back, we'll talk about the upcoming FIFA World Cup. And if y'all leave anything in the chat during the break, I'll address those too. And yeah, we'll be back.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
What's up, bros and besties? How's it going? I had to do something else with the audio, so let me know if y'all can hear me in the chat. So I had to look up, just for kicks and giggles during the break, I had to look up why is Matt Eberflus called the linebacker whisperer? And so I Googled it just to see. And they said he's called the linebacker whisperer because he excels at developing linebackers, transforming good players into great ones by teaching them fundamental, aggressive, and assignment-sound football, leading to high-production tackles for loss and impactful plays, which is something that, we haven't really seen. And so they list a few different linebackers that are supposedly his evidence of success with these players. So they list Sean Lee, Jalen Smith, and Shaquille Leonard. So here's what I'm going to say regarding this. I coached a roller derby team for a little while, right? I coached a men's team, and I coached an open gender team. So the closest thing y'all might know to that is like co-ed. Co-ed is similar to open gender. And I had the opportunity to coach some really great jammers. But it would be a mistake for anybody to call me a jammer whisperer. Like, I developed jammers. Now, what I was good at was looking at the jammers I had and figuring out how best to draw up plays for the blockers that were around them, and how they could be used, and basically what to do team-wise in order to make the most of those jammers. So, like, one of the things that I did for my co-ed team, it was our first year playing a particular rule set, and we ended up going to third place in the international tournament. But one of the things that I did is I had this one jammer who was so good. She could jam back-to-back jams, which is rare, but she could even go in as a blocker. So we had plays where she would go in as a jammer and then pass off the start and switch to a blocker. We had special plays using her skills as a jammer, but using them in a blocker sense. Like, we did some really creative shit using that particular player, but it wasn't like I made her a great jammer or any of the great jammers I worked with. Like, thinking back on it, I was really privileged to work with some of the jammers that I worked with, and go as far as I did and be able to make playoffs and travel with those teams. But I didn't train them to do what they did. And I'll admit to you, I didn't train them to do what they did. I just helped the team basically complement what they did. And so sometimes when I see these short lists of players for coaches like this, I'm like, are they really the linebacker whisperer, the quarterback whisperer, whatever it says that they are? Or were they fortunate to work with certain types of players? I'm like, show me the player that they took from they weren't doing shit, and then literally because of this person, they started to excel. Like, if somebody wanted to say that about Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, for example, right? You look at where Caleb Williams was last year, ironically, under the leadership of Matt Eberflus. But, when Ben Johnson came over, they were like, oh, it's going to take him a couple of years to get Caleb to where he needs to be as an NFL quarterback. And so they said that. But then fast forward to this year, and we're at the end of one season, and it's like, oh, well, look at what Ben Johnson was able to do. So if people wanted to say, Ben Johnson might be a quarterback whisperer, like he's a great offensive mind, okay, he has some credits for that. But I don't know really what the full basis was for giving that title to Matt Eberflus. Anyway, moving on. I said we're going to talk about FIFA. We're going to talk about FIFA. So the FIFA World Cup 2026 is coming to North America. And why do I say it's coming to North America and not a specific city or state? Because if you've been paying attention, you know this tournament is going to cover 16 different cities across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And so I want to bring up something for you because, you know, if you've been paying attention to the sports news in the last week, you might have heard a term called the FIFA World Cup draw, where people were talking about the draw. So the draw, I'm going to try to translate everything into NFL terms for you guys. So the draw is like a bracket. And this is what it looks like. Hold on, let me make this bigger. This is what it looks like. This is the bracket. So we've got 104 matches over 16 cities, incorporating 48 different teams from around the world. So get a good look at this. This might be something that the NCAA might consider in resolving this whole playoff situation that they have going on, because nobody's happy with that. But maybe if they turn it into a 48 team situation instead of 12, maybe people will be a little bit more satisfied. But that's another conversation for another day. But today, yes, well, this didn't happen today, but today we're discussing the 104 matches that will take place across 16 cities with 48 teams. And you'll hear people say things like, this is the largest World Cup ever. And they're saying that because it literally is. Like in the past, the World Cup has been 32 teams. And the top two teams from each group are the ones that end up going on to the single elimination portion of the World Cup. This year, they're taking 48 teams total, and it's going to be 32 teams that end up making the elimination portion, or the single elimination portion. So you're going to have the top two from each group like normal, and then they're going to have 8 third-place teams, which the third-place situation gets complicated. So I'm going to tell y'all like this, because I've even listened to other people talk about it, people who have covered soccer longer than I have, and even they just feel like it's a lot. There's almost 500 different combinations for how these third-place teams could shake out because of the fact that you have 12 groups, and you've got to take like 8 third-place teams from among those 12 groups, and there's different things that they're considering. So kind of think of it as like what the NFL onside kick rule was this year, where it's like everybody knew that the onside kick rule had changed. Everybody had kind of read it. But then when it came time to actually implement it, a lot of fans were like, what is this? And even coaches and players were kind of like, we don't really understand how this is supposed to work. Yes, we knew it was going to happen, but we don't really totally get it. So it's kind of like that. When it comes time to seed these third place teams and decide who's going to move on to the single elimination portion, the FIFA governing body, they got that. Like, that's going to be one of those things that's just hard to predict in advance, but they have a whole system for determining it. So like, they got it. Just know there's almost 500 different combinations. And you'll hear about who's going to qualify for that particular portion closer to the day. All right. JV says Jerry Jones most likely. Oh, he's talking about Eberflus. We'll get back to that. So let's see. What else do we need to know? So 3 things that you need to know if you're an NFL fan that wants to follow the FIFA World Cup. And I'll say that these are 3 things that you need to know for now. I could very well come to y'all next week or the week after that with 3 more things that y'all need to know, because I look at this as we're going on this journey together. Like, have I watched soccer? Yes. Do I follow it closely? Definitely not like I follow the NFL. So do I want to cover this? Absolutely. But I'm not going to drop every single bit of knowledge on y'all in the first episode where I talk about this. So we'll call this part 1 of the 3 things that you need to know as an NFL fan who wants to follow the FIFA World Cup. So these are the absolute basics. So 1 is what I just told y'all. We've got 16 cities. We've got 48 teams. We've got 32 teams that are going to go into the single elimination round. And this is a global national team tournament that's held every 4 years. And the 2026 one is expanded. So everything that I told y'all, you can consider basic number 1. And so it's the portion that I'm calling the single elimination stage is what a lot of people who cover the sport will call the knockout stage. So you have the group stages, and so that's when you have 4 teams in each group stage, and each team has to play each of the other 4 teams. So like if the 4 teams are these 4 fingers right here, the index finger has to play the middle ring and pinky finger. The middle finger has to play the index ring and pinky finger, so on and so forth, right? So that's the group stage where everybody plays each other. And then the single elimination portion is the knockout portion. And so, yeah, I feel like this is one of those things where we need the help of like Sesame Street or something. So who owns Sesame Street right now? They didn't disappear. I think last I read it was Netflix. So Netflix, if y'all could get like Elmo and Big Bird, and the count would be so into this. Get the count on this. And just help the U.S. sports fans out. Just help them get up to speed with how this is all supposed to work. We would love you for that. So basic number 2. So there's a difference between what players typically do in their professional careers and what they do with their country. So I say that to say, you can kind of think of this as like how there are players who play for a particular team on the NBA, and then they might play for Team USA. Or they might be like one of those players who plays for the NBA, but then they play for whatever country they're from that's not the USA. So the same thing happens with the World Cup. You have players who spend most of their time with their club team. So that's where you might hear like a person talking about a player from Real Madrid or Liverpool, so on and so forth, or a particular MLS team. So like there's going to be some people who might be fans of Messi who have been watching the MLS because he's been playing with the MLS in Miami. But then for the World Cup, he's going to be playing with Argentina. So you might have some Americans who are like, I'm going to root for Argentina because I'm a Messi fan, as opposed to rooting for Team USA. And that brings us to basic number 3, which is where the U.S. fits in all this. So I know sometimes, especially when the Olympics come around, Americans like to really lean into the idea of American supremacy when it comes to sport. Don't really depend on that when it comes to Team USA in the World Cup. So if you ever see the letters USMNT, like I said, I'm breaking this down for y'all like y'all are 5. So some of y'all might know this, some of y'all might not. But USMNT stands for the U.S. men's national team. It's basically a way of saying Team USA, but talking about the men's soccer team. And so a lot of people have been talking about how they received a favorable draw, referring to the group that they're in, and saying that, based on the group that they're in, they should make it to the knockout stage. So for any country, if you hear anybody talking about them having a favorable draw, that's what people are saying when they say that. Is that, okay, looking at where they were placed and the draw that they have, the people they'll be competing against, they'll probably make it to the knockout stage. And that's what people are saying about the U.S. men's team. However, when it comes to soccer worldwide, the U.S. is a solid but not elite soccer team. And so for most people, they're expecting the U.S. to advance from the group rounds into the knockout rounds, but not really to make a deep run in this. So there are some people who are already trying to predict who will be in the quarterfinals, and I have yet to hear a single person predict that the U.S. will be there. So, just do with that information what you will. If you want to be a homer, you're new to soccer, and you're like, I want to follow this because it's going to be taking place in the U.S., and so all these U.S. media outlets are talking about it now, and so I'm just going to be patriotic and root for the U.S., do you. But if you are a person who's like, you know what, I'm a fan of players. I want to find a player that I like, or whose story that I like, or a country whose story that I like. Also not a bad idea. Or maybe you know what your heritage is and you're like, yeah, I live in America, but my people migrated here from wherever. You can do that too. It's all accepted in the world of soccer. But yeah, the U.S. men's team, you can kind of think of it, Beyonce, they're more like, there are people who like them and, they have good reasons for being liked. But when you start comparing discographies, like the difference is a lot more apparent. JV said time to pay off the refs. Yeah, I don't see that as being a viable strategy here. But anyway, so those are the 3 basics that I would say y'all need to know today. Just the format of the tournament, which hopefully I made clear, but this probably won't be the last time that we talk about it. The fact that there's a difference between the clubs that people play for and the country team that they play for, and also the fact that the U.S. is not exactly expected to win out. As a matter of fact, another good strategy for who you root for, especially this is something you can only do as a beginning soccer fan. You can root for the U.S. until they get knocked out, and then be like, okay, well, now that the U.S. is knocked out, I'm going to start rooting for another team. As a beginner soccer fan, you could probably get away with that shit. So, just use the naivete of U.S. sports fans. Use that to your advantage and have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? But with that being the case, there are a lot of headlines that come up, and this isn't exclusive to the FIFA World Cup. This happens pretty much anytime there's an international sporting event. I think when the Little League World Series was happening, I told y'all about the Venezuelan team who all of their visas were denied and they weren't allowed into the country. And so those athletes, those children were denied the opportunity to fight for something they'd been working toward all season. And they were replaced by another team. And so speaking of Venezuela, fast forward, and we don't have similar headlines, but we have basically people worried that the same thing might happen. And so this is where and I'm not going to get political here. I'm going to stick as close to the facts as I can. So just know that everything that I'm about to tell y'all is just a fact. FIFA presented Donald Trump with the FIFA World Peace Award. And a lot of people are asking what that is. And some people are saying it's a fake award. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because as we follow the storylines of the World Cup and how things are playing out in terms of, there's just a lot to consider when it comes to the weeks leading up to the World Cup. There's the teams, of course. There's the players, because the rosters have not been finalized. There are some people who you just kind of know they're going to make the world team. If they were to put together a Team USA today, there are some people who would be like, oh, yeah, SGA, he's definitely going to be on it. If he wants to be, why would he not? How could that not be the case? You know what I'm saying? So there are people like that who are just like, okay, yeah, they're probably going to be on the team. We can go ahead and assume that that's a shoo-in. But I say that to say there's a lot of storylines to follow, and this has been one of the most popular ones. And I even talked to y'all about this a few weeks ago when I was talking about the Trevor Noah clip and basically the intersection between nationalism and patriotism and sports fans and bias, right? And we talked about that. And I also talked about the fact that when it comes to these international sporting events, anytime that they're held in a place where there's any sort of social or political unrest or there's tension, it usually doesn't bode well for the event itself. So this is something that as I've been following it, I've been kind of like, okay, is this something where the stuff that's been controversial in the U.S. is going to ruin these events? And by these events, I mean the World Cup, I mean the Olympics, so on and so forth. Or is this a situation where capitalism might save the day? And why did I think capitalism might save the day? Well, because there's a lot of money riding on these events. And so I was like, well, that's going to either lead to one of two things. It's going to mean, hey, we need to push back on some of the political controversy because we can't afford for these events to be ruined. We need the U.S. to look good, so chill the fuck out. Or it could mean bending the knee. It can mean kissing the ring for the sake of making sure that these events go well. And so when you hear people talk about the FIFA World Peace Award being potentially a fake award, that's kind of what they're leaning into. Because on paper, FIFA is like, well, Trump helped broker the deal that brought peace between Palestine and Israel. So, yeah, he deserves this because that's major. That's major. And then there are other people who are like, no, there wasn't enough transparency in the selection process. Something feels fishy here. And honestly, those people could be correct. There could be something fishy going on because here's the thing. And when I say here's the thing, I'm not just talking about the World Cup. I'm not even just talking about the Olympics. We talked months ago about the deal between the NFL and ESPN and how that was going to rely on federal regulatory approval. So there were people who are like, why is Roger Goodell in the Oval Office? What is he doing? He always said that he wasn't political, yada, yada, yada. Well, there's billions of dollars on the line. And whether or not those billions of dollars are allocated the way he and ESPN would like to see them allocated depends on federal regulatory approval. Same thing with the current deal that's going on between Netflix and Warner Brothers. federal regulatory approval. There was something that Fubo was trying to do that I think they're close to finalizing. Once again, relying on federal regulatory approval. And so when it comes to this situation with the FIFA World Peace Award, I'm talking less about, who did what and the lack of transparency and who you think deserves what and what may or may not be a fake award. And I'm talking more just about the capitalistic nature of global sports. And that's something that I feel like as sports fans, we have to come to terms with and just come to understand if we're going to keep being sports fans, because pretty much every sport has a global element now. So you can't be a sports fan and not at some point be confronted with a headline or a storyline that is related to the capitalistic nature of the sport. And so in this situation, we're looking at FIFA, that is a multi-billion-dollar organization that's deeply dependent on broadcast sponsorship, host country political goodwill. We're talking about the need for certain secure infrastructure, security, and regulatory support. And so, yeah, they're going to be sensitive to the needs of presidents and heads of state, just for the sake of making sure that something doesn't mysteriously happen to sabotage their event, or to make sure that the things that they need to get the event off and to make sure that everybody is safe, that they get what they need in order to do that. Sometimes that means you have to appease people, and that may mean them giving them an award for something that a lot of people don't agree with, or a fake award, whatever you want to call it. It might mean making that person happy, especially when that person has proven that they are that they are willing to use their power however they feel the need to wield it in order to get the result that they think is appropriate, regardless of the needs and desires of the other people who may be involved. So yes, this might not be the last time that FIFA or the Olympic Committee or Netflix or ABC or ESPN or NFL or Roger Goodell or anybody does something questionable, and the current administration is involved in the headline. So it's like, I feel like I've been saying this to y'all since I started this podcast. When shit don't make sense, follow the money. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. But yeah, so if there's anything that y'all want to know about soccer or the World Cup or about the USMNT, you can put it in the comments here. You can put it, if you're watching after the fact, put it in the comments under the video. I'll make a community post about it if y'all want to put it there. But, I just want to make sure that y'all are getting the information that y'all need to enjoy the World Cup. And we can go from there. But before I get out of here, I do want to talk about another good story. So tomorrow night, scrolling through my notes here, there's going to be a Stuart Scott documentary. It's called Boo-Yah, a portrait of Stuart Scott. It's a 30 for 30 documentary that will be airing tomorrow night, December 10th at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and in the ESPN app. And this is almost as it is in sports, so it is in life, but it's less as it is in sports, and it's more like Stuart Scott was a sports figure, And I feel like if there's anything that you can take from his story, it's what you can do not only for yourself, but for the people who follow you, for the people who watch you. It's what you can do for them when you decide to live authentically. Because one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize, because in hindsight, Stuart Scott is celebrated. But the truth is, when he was first starting on SportsCenter at ESPN, his style was new. And not everybody liked it. Not everybody appreciated it. He was called divisive. He was criticized negatively. He was made fun of. There were people who pushed back against the style that he brought to his sports commentary and narrating the highlights. But the truth is, the style that he brought to the table, it is still being emulated today. He literally, just by being his authentic self, brought something to the game that would change sport coverage forever. And that's something that not a lot of people can say, no matter what they've accomplished in their career. That's something that you can't really say unless you've taken the risk that's involved with being authentic. And so I just want to encourage everybody to not only to to watch that documentary, but to really like put whatever assumptions that you have aside and really take in the message of the documentary, and also just draw whatever inspiration you can from that documentary. Because even if you're not doing what he's doing, even if you're not doing what I'm doing, you might be doing something else. But I just feel like there are so many people who could benefit from feeling encouraged when it comes to using their authenticity, as opposed to what I feel a lot of people are dealing with, which is discouragement. And I don't even just necessarily mean that in like a political sense or a social sense. It's just like, I was talking to somebody the other night about just people who made it during YouTube's early days, who were able to build a career off YouTube. And that person was like, yeah, that channel isn't there anymore. And I was like, well, it's there. It's just very different. Like, you have to put out way more volume than any of those people did. And also the algorithm plays a big role in what people are able to do. So I was telling him about becoming a YouTube partner, and how as a YouTube partner, even though I don't make hardly any money off my YouTube videos, now there's a feature called Hype, which is only on long form videos. And this is for y'all, my audience as well. If y'all ever watch a replay of my videos, please look for this button. It's called a Hype button. But users can hype up to 3 videos a week. And basically, if you are a YouTube partner and you put out long-term content, people can press this hype button on your video, and it gives you points that basically push you. The more points you have, the more you're going to be pushed onto other people's home feeds, right? But this friend that I have, since he's not a YouTube partner, he doesn't even have that option. So YouTube is really sending the message that, like, unless you are a celebrity or unless you are some kind of influencer who can bring us an audience, you better figure it out. You just going to have to get it out the mud, because we really don't care. Like, yeah, we'll make space for smaller creators, but if you are below a certain threshold, too bad. Sorry for you. And so you can take that same concept and apply it to several platforms, and just how their algorithms work and how it determines who gets seen and who is not seen. But anyway, I say all this to say, because of how those algorithms work, some people do feel pressure to fit into a certain box and make content that looks a certain way. And I just want everybody to remember that maybe the solution that's going to help you get a win and help you get somewhere, maybe it hasn't been invented yet. And so just don't be afraid to lean into that authenticity. Don't be afraid to be yourself, because while it might seem like so many people are working against you, and while it may seem like so many people don't like what you're doing, have something negative to say, the algorithm ain't fucking with you, the industry you're in ain't fucking with you, there might be people watching who do fuck with you. It might just take time. You might be one of those people who they look at in hindsight and be like, you know what? That person was really working with something. So anyway, like I said, that's tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and in the ESPN app. Also tonight, I'll probably be live tweeting during Hard Knocks, which will be on HBO Max. We might get a behind the scenes look into how the team reacted when it came to this loss to the Lions on Thursday. You don't put that in the sideline. I'll see y'all next time. I'm your host, Baz Monet. See y'all next Tuesday, and I'm out.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center